and I am a quilter. And what does that mean? I eat, sleep, and dream quilts. I quilt all the time. Now, quilts for me comes from my heart, my hands, and then my head. If I don't see this in my head, even before I buy the fabric, I can't make it. I have to feel it first. And when you guys think about quilts, you think of this, patchwork quilts. And there's nothing wrong with that. This gives you thoughts of grandma, of love, of making your bed. But I don't do this. My quilts do not go in bed. I think I put it on one bed one time. Most of my quilts go on the wall. And most of the quilts I have goes on the wall. I have no more wall space in my house. And a side note, my husband thinks that I okayed redecorating our basement for exercise room because I wanted to exercise. No, I need more wall space. I have 5 quilts down there and 1 going down the hall. So I love to make quilts. Now, this is a quilt. This is how a quilt starts. What is a quilt? It starts with machine piecing or regular piecing, such as this. In the middle, you have a piece of batting. And in the back, you have another piece of fabric to create a sandwich. And to hold that sandwich together, you have types of stitches, different types of stitches. You have hand stitching, manually, machine stitching, or for me, embroidery machine stitching. The stitching is called quilting. So when you hear me say I quilted it, it's a type of stitching I use. There are other types of stitchings that I do not use, such as tying, which is little pieces of thread in specific places, or long arm, which is a complete unit where sewing machine runs along and makes complicated stitches. Now, how I got started. I started quilting in 1982. I'm a crafter. I do all kinds of crafts, and I thought if I took a class, I'll get one more craft to put in my arsenal. So about 10, 12 years, I didn't do anything. But in 2000, things started to happen. And I would buy a piece of fabric, and I would buy a piece of fabric, buy a pattern, make a quilt. That's what I would do. And I did that for a couple of years. But a good friend of mine, Barbara, came to me and said, I have this pattern for my daughter from Africa, make me a quilt. And I went, I don't have a pattern for that. And she said, you can do this, make me a quilt. So what I did was, I took the panel, it came from Africa, and I designed, this is my very first quilt that I made in 2002.
Wow.
This is the first time I touched it in 20 years, because it was in our house and she mailed it to me. Because I told, she just came out of the hospital. I see what I did wrong, but I see a lot of things I did right. And it still looks good after 20 years. This quilt is machine pieced, paper pieced, and hand quilted. Now, I'm gonna start saying things like machine pieced, paper pieced, and a lot of you guys here are quilters, so you know what I'm talking about. For those who do not know what I'm talking about, this is considered machine pieced. And that means I put a piece and a piece on a piece with a sewing machine. And I created this block. It's more complex than that, but that's basically what I did. You can also do this by hand, but why would you? And the reason why I say that is because it doesn't look as nice and flat and neat as machine quilting. Also, I'm going to talk about when I say paper piece, such as in this spot here. This is paper piece. It looks the same, however, it's sewn on paper. And the reason why I like this pattern is because it's exact. It's when whatever you see here, you see here. And what you do is you buy the pattern, you print it on the computer, or you make it yourself. And in my case, I made it myself. The reason why I like this is because it's exact. You can make blocks as small as a ½ inch or as big as 2-3 feet. The next design I like, the next type of quilting I like, piecing, is called applique. This little guy has 4 flowers and leaves, and each one of these petals are put on by hand. It's very labor intensive, but it's also what I like to do, applique. Now, getting back to quilting. Once again, when I say it's paper piece, this is paper piece, this is machine piece, and it's hand quilted. Now I want to talk about the quilt over here. I call her Shades of Gray. All my quilts are she. You'll hear me say her a lot, and she a lot. This one took about 11 months to make, and it's called the medallion quilt. And a medallion quilt is because the center is something in the middle, and lots of components or layers all around. This one has about, I would say 9 layers. So you have the quilt, the center here, the compass, mariner compass here, and it keeps different layers. All my quilts have a story. I create a story. So the center is usually the beginning of my story, and the edging is my end of my story. And if you notice, they match because I'm creating a feeling. Now, this quilt has wonky mariner's corners, because some go to the left, some go to the right, and then you see mariner's compass straight on. This quilt is machine pieced, paper pieced, and hand quilted. This one over here came from a book called Bella Bella Quilts by Nora McKeeden. I made this, I used 2 of her patterns. The second one you've seen before because it's a replica of Italian mosaic floor. Now, if you watch Harry Potter, it was when he saw the judges. And if you watch Twilight movies, it's when they went to the Italian vampire's house in Italy. What's strange about that is I like Harry Potter and Twilight. That's really sad. Now this circle is one of her patterns. This one's another. This circle is exactly the same thing as this one. I took some things out, I judged it around a little bit, and I created another design. This one is another one of my circles I broke up into thirds, not fourths, because I needed to get around. This quilt was machine pieced and paper pieced and hand quilted. Now I don't hand quilt anymore, much anymore, because as much as I love hand quilting, it did not love me. All those hundreds of thousands of stitches made my arthritis act up. So now you'll hear me machine quilt and embroidery quilt. Now I get inspiration from different things. I get inspiration from pictures, from life, from photos, and from fabric. This quilt, I saw a stained glass window, and I decided I need to make this one. And if you look at the quilt, the story that I had in mind is you go from day to dusk. If you notice, the color is changing. And then around the daylight, I have crystals. And in earth, we have one sun, but my story, my quilt, I have many suns. And one of my trademarks is I like piece borders. So you'll see I spend a lot of time finishing my story with piece borders, and they were, to me, in my head, they were sun rays. This quilt is machine pieced, paper pieced, and hand quilted.
Jackie, how did you get it to twinkle like that?
Oh, crystals. I put crystals in there.
You put individual crystals?
Yeah, there's a way to put crystals in your quilt. You'll see it crystals again.
That's crazy.
Are they sewn on?
No, they're hot.
Hot.
I also get inspiration from photos. And this one has a pattern, but I didn't use the pattern. Because I have, the most fun I get in life is sitting down, taking a pattern, a picture, breaking it down to the smallest components and putting it back together again. So when I did talk about it on Facebook, I did give the author credit, because you should always give the author credit. It is paper pieced, once again, because you see how some of the components are kind of small. I love the 3D effect. And you're gonna see, I have a tell. I didn't realize it until I started talking about this show. I did this border way too many times. And I'm not gonna do it again, because I did it so many times. But this quilt is machine pieced, paper pieced, and embroidery designed. You see the difference? It's embroidery design, embroidery quilted. You see the difference. I'm trying to keep it moving because it's 40 quilts here. And you'll be here all day. I saw this one also in a photo. And I broke it down and recreated it. There was no author for me to give credit to. This one is also a paper piece because if you look at it, there's a block here that's a ½ inch big. And it's hard to do that by machine piecing. The border is pieced, and that's a very simple technique. Most quilters know that checkerboard technique. I love making this one. This one is machine pieced, paper pieced, and machine quilted. Now I get inspiration from fabrics. AEQB, who's here right now, Elizabeth, knows every summer we go on break, and she gives us a piece of fabric and tells us to do something for the summer. You can make anything you want, bags, coasters, but you know, I'm gonna make a quilt with a story. And this fabric by itself would not make a very interesting quilt. It's flat, it's nice fabric, but as a quilt, it's dull. So I had to make my own story. In my head, my chickens and roosters were hanging out in 2s and 4s. And you're gonna see clear space where I hand quilted little paths, because in my head, they're visiting each other very nicely on their paths. This quilt is machine pieced and hand quilted.
And those little buttons.
I put buttons on for design. No particular reason, just for design. Now we also received this fabric, coyotes and corn and hot peppers. Once again, not a real interesting quilt. But I created a whole story in my head. Because once again, she was, my quilts were always she. She was busy. I thought of a very specific place. I thought of coyotes in the southwest part of the country. So I cut the components out, I edged them in green fabric, and I put them back in a secondary design. And then my interpretation of American Indian suncatcher, and the coyotes are howling in the night. And there you see the crystals again, sparkling along. This quilt is machine pieced, paper pieced, and machine quilted.
These don't get washed once you put those crystals on. You can't really wash them.
You really, it might come off.
Yeah, they're more.
My quilts go on the walls, so there's no need to wash.
Just dust.
They don't get dirty. You just Febreze it every so often. This quilt was, these quilts were in closets. They don't come out. My babies stay in closets. Okay. I'm looking around. I'm looking around. This is called T for 2. Now this would make a decent quilt on its own, because the quilt has a story in it, but that's not what I saw. Now, Moda is the company who created this pattern, T for 2. They discontinued it, but I went on Etsy to buy more of it, because I made this 3 times. One for a gift, the original, and a third one I sold. So I'll make it again. I love this pattern. But the story in my head, I call this Black Love. And the center is applique. Remember I said applique is very labor intensive?
Yeah.
This block took about a week by itself. And for the quilters, I used the log cabin in half and then put the flying piece down the middle. And this quilt is machine pieced, paper pieced, hand quilted, embroidered quilted, and machine quilted. And if you notice, I purchased the design, so it has a lot of interest. That's the benefit of having embroidery quilted.
Could you explain more about embroidery quilting?
Okay,
I don't understand.
Normally long arm quilters put their quilts on the machine, and they have these wonderful designs on it. Well, I don't have that. because I don't have a whole room to put a long arm machine in. So what I did is I took my embroidery module and I put it in, and I had to sew it in pieces to get that design to work. So I had this by 14 by 8 inches to get it to work, and it looks like long arm. Not quite the same, but it looks like it.
So like, you set it to do like a meander, or you
I
set it
purchased
to
the
do
design I want.
Okay.
Go online, you purchase what design you want, and you start sewing. It does it all for you, no thinking. The hard part is setting it up. Now this is African animals. And once again, this would make a decent quilt on its own. It has a story in itself. So unlike the coyotes and the roosters, it would make a decent story. However, that's not what I saw. This is actually a pattern. Her name is Erin Underwood, and she owns a quilt store in Delaware called Blue Hen. And her pattern is 4 of these. So it's a really big quilt. That's why it's asymmetrical, because she usually has 4. I have 3. This one you can put aside when you're finished. This quilt is machine pieced and embroidery quilted. Now there's something else special about this quilt. Somebody's going home with that one today. Yay. That's a little piece of paper. I hope everybody got one.
We do, yeah.
Okay, Angela, we'll get that to you when it's finished. Now, you gotta use your imagination for these next 3. Because the fabric, I used all the fabric. I had no fabric left. So, this one was a series of suns. Once again, the AAQB annual challenge. It was beautiful fabric, but like the coyotes and the roosters, there was no story. And it needed a secondary story. So, this one, I paper piece the sun in the middle, a star in the middle, and then the suns all around. And it's a very strong secondary design. This quilt is machine pieced, paper pieced, and hand quilted.
Is that a print, those suns? Is it a
It was
print?
part of the fabric that I cut up.
Oh,
It's
okay.
called fussy cutting.
Oh, yeah, I thought maybe you would did those little pieces.
Oh, don't, I might.
Yeah.
Yeah,
She would.
I might. So I did it over here. I might, I would do it. Now, teapots is not my thing, but it was a fabric I was giving, and I actually do like this quilt, even though teapots are not my thing. Once again, like the coyotes and the roosters, it was just pieces of fabric. Now, this one, I wanted to create a story, and I put lots of stars, blocks around, and the flying geese. Now, once again, flying geese are triangles that are lying down. But this one has something different. It has prairie points. They're 3D. And I thought of Michelle Obama. So I put teapots and pearls. So that's what this one is, teapots with, once again, the piece border, and then the flying geese, prairie points with pearls. This quilt is machine pieced and machine quilted, and a little bit of paper piecing. There's one more that you have to imagine. I have it out of order. I'll come back to this one later. I get inspiration from books. This is a coloring book. And when I saw this book, I went, ooh, that looks like me. I can make this quilt. So in the book, I'll show you the quilt I had in mind. I could do this. Now it has lots of curves, and my sewing machine is linear. My sewing machine likes straight lines. She does not like curves. I'm getting ready to learn how to do that, but for the time being, this is my interpretation of that quilt. So every time you see a curve, you know I applique that down.
Oh, that was just evil.
And I had to convert the picture to quilting designs. So you see the quilting designs. And notice my piece border. Once again, I love a good piece border to finish the story. That took me days to make. Lots and lots of days. I like that just as much as I like the center. This quilt is machine pieced, a whole lot of paper piecing, and hand quilted. I actually made the sewing machine go in curves there. But I love that quilt. I saw this picture, straight lines. Woo, I can do that. I can make all those straight lines. I can do that. It only has a little bit of curves. Oops. Now, this is what I did with it. She talked to me a whole lot. We had lots of conversations. She told me, when you have a quilt judged, you have to make a decision. You have to determine whether it's going to be paper pieced or machine pieced, if it's going to be hand quilted or machine quilted. Well, she told me, don't follow those rules. I paper pieced, I machine pieced, I appliqued. I hand quilted, I embroidery quilted, and I machine quilted. I did everything for this quilt. And when I was done, she said, I'm not done with you. I don't want to be a square. So I had to change the design. Now, where she's going to go? In my closet. This quilt has everything in it. A little bit of everything. Now, this one is out of order. When I saw this quilt, once again, notice the piece border, such as the other one too. I spent a lot of time in the piece border. I saw these cacti, and when I put it together as a quilt, it was really boring. So it needed something. So I decided to take it and make a larger block and give it more interest with multicolors. And once again, I used this technique. This is called sashing, by the way, where it breaks up the blocking. And notice the piece border. It's also flying east, but she's a little bit funky. You know, she goes up and down. This quilt is machine pieced, paper pieced, and a whole lot of embroidery. It's a whole lot of embroidery in this quilt. But I didn't realize how much I did this border. I'm not doing it anymore for a nice long time. I did it way too many times. Now, just to give you an idea how my brain works, I have 3 pieces of fabric. It needs a story. It needs a story. Now, she has a quilt that's out of it, but Angela has a piece of this, but it needs a story. I don't know when it's going to happen, but it's going to be a quilt.
Beautiful.
Now, remember I talked about fussy cutting things out? This one, I might get away with not fussy cutting, but I probably will, because I probably want to make a more elaborate story than this. But I love this fabric. She needs a story too. And the last one I want to show is this one. Peacocks. You can see I cut it up already. My other daughter got a piece of this one, and she make a decent quilt too, and she needs a story. You notice I have a tell? They all have black backgrounds. Now, a story. Coronavirus came around, and I was quilting a lot. And I was going through Pinterest, and I saw this quilt of prairie points. And I went, my grandmother used to do that, but she didn't call it, in the islands you didn't call it prairie points, like you do here. So I contacted my aunt and said, is this what Granny used to do? And she said, yes. Now what prairie points is you take a piece of fabric, a square, you fold it in half, you fold it in third, and you have a finished square. Now in 1969, I moved from St. Thomas, from New York, you hear my twang, to the Virgin Islands, and at the end of the day, my grandmother would sit by a window and make these pillows. She called them triangles, and we call them prairie points. So when I made this quilt, I asked my aunt, this is what she did. All random, scrappy. You guys know I don't like scrappy. You know, I like organized patterns, organized colors. But she would use all the fabric she had in the house. Anything she had in the house, she would use. So that's why I wanted to have different things to show what she would do. I asked if somebody had one of her pillows. Nobody had it. Basically because that's 50-something years ago, and they probably threw it in the garbage. But I sat down, and it was time to play. This is my version, 21st century of prairie points. You notice the design is, I have a definite design, a definite color, and my prairie points are sewed down. Hers were loose. I started with a star in the middle, and I worked my way out. This quilt is machine pieced and machine quilted. Still plain. This little guy, she has flying geese around. Only the center is prairie points, loose. Just nothing special about her. She is machine pieced, paper pieced, and a touch of embroidery in the center. Now, I was sitting out at night thinking, what's going to be the next one with these prairie points? And I thought of Christmas trees. Christmas trees is triangle-y. That should work. This is my version of a Christmas tree with the prairie points. Once again, you see it, I control the colors. I can't have that random colors that easily. And I have 3 fabrics. I actually applique her down. Even though I could have sewn it down, I applique the tree down. This machine is machine pieced, machine quilted, and the little plastic beads are to simulate ornaments. Now I'm starting to get complicated. I'm not playing now.
Wait, what?
Not playing. I decided I need to put some more work in this. This was a lot of work. The prairie points start off in the middle as a star, and it starts to work its way around, and I had to control the color to make sure the colors went where I wanted to go. This quilt is machine pieced, machine quilted with a touch of embroidery. And if you look at the colors, that's variegated thread. And what variegated thread is, thread that's white, light purple, medium purple, and dark purple. This is not my favorite though. I like this one, but it's not my favorite. This is my favorite. This is also prairie points, but I took the liberty of changing the design, the size from a 1/2 inch all the way to 2 1/4 inch. And notice how the colors swirl from the center. That took time to make that work. This quilt is machine piece, machine piece, machine quilted with a touch of embroidery.
Do you draw everything ahead of time? Do you make your patterns?
The funny thing is I can't draw.
Oh,
So I do draw it. You don't want to see it. Nobody would understand it. But I do sit down and I draw it. But most of the time I'm going to components. So it's easy to put down little components. I'm not actually drawing the whole thing. I'm drawing the triangles.
They were all different sizes. I think that would have been very hard to figure out.
It took a minute. It took a minute.
I know who to go to when I have a problem.
And I decided, what can I do with really big prairie points? So this is a door decoration that's never seen a door. And this is probably about 7 inches all the way down to 3. And it's probably going to go back in the closet with all my other quilt babies. But I just want to experiment with bigger prairie points. Now I'm hoping, my grandmother's been going quite a long time, but I hope I did my granny proud. Also, while I'm sitting on Pinterest every day, looking for ideas, I kept getting attracted to stripes. Geometric pictures, geometric quilts. So it's time to shop. I bought fabric, a 1/4 inch stripe, an 1/8 inch stripe, a 1/2 inch stripe, black and gray and red. And then you know what time it is. Time to play. Now this one is not my favorite quilt. This quilt probably could be machine pieced. Just take a square, cut it in half, and put the white in the middle. But I paper piece this, because paper piecing is fast and accurate. And for some reason, I don't like this quilt. I call it Hugs and Kisses, because it has X and O's. And because I didn't like it, I said, just embroider the crap out of it. And that's what I did. I embroidered a lot. I still don't like it that much. But in this series, I decided to make a series. Now, as you said, I created a story for all my quilts. This story did not quite work. The idea behind this was, it was supposed to be a square in stars. Because the fabric behind is lots of stars. But what I did was, I gave it too much work. And I spent so much time embroidering, you can't see the stars. So you don't see that that is what I wanted to show. But I still like the quilt. It's still a cute quilt. Now this technique here is called Seminole technique, and you're gonna see there's lots of them. And you're gonna see it again. I'll keep pointing it out. Once again, I love my piece borders. This is applique. And the reason why I had to applique it is because I needed to control the circle in a square, in a square, in a square. So I had to applique it down because the sewing machine you can't control as much. It's a little boring. It needed red. It needed some red. It is applique and machine embroidery quilted. You see all the embroidery? There's a mama bear, papa bear, baby bear blocks, quilting. Big, medium, little. It needed red. It's okay. I tried to give it some interest by putting this border on the diagonal. All of you quilters in here know that's not a great idea because your quilt will sag. It's not sturdy. So I made it narrow. But if I made it any wider, I would have quilted to give it stability. And then I also gave it a flange, which is like a piping, a different direction. I was trying to make it work. I was trying hard to give it some interest. Now I'm starting to get complicated. Cubes. The stripes, then the cubes. The story I had in mind for this one, once again, I don't know if the story worked. I'm not 100% sure my story worked. Was that the cubes were on a ledge, lots of different ledges.
Yeah. Extra print.
That was the idea. And then the squares up here, it's a lot of embroidery. Each one of these have their own embroidery design. Now, if anyone embroiders, you know how much work it is because each one of them had to be put on the hoop individually. 20 times I put that on the hoop and moved it around. And then I had to put it on here. In the center, I machine quilted because I needed to control where I put the stitches. This quilt is machine pieced and embroidery quilted. Now I'm back to making cubes again. Me and these cubes. There's something with these cubes for quilters. Once again, you know that Y seam is not always a lovely thing. And a Y seam is the seam right here. Make that cube. So what you do is you sew from end to the middle, bottom to the middle, and then you pray it lies flat. But I did it so many times, you iron the crap out of it. Yes, starch and iron. But I did it so many times that I did get the hang of it. You'll see it. I did it over there, and you're going to see it again. That quilt is machine quilted, and I think it's machine quilted and machine pieced. Sometimes I forget what I did to it. Now this one worked. I think this one worked. I want it to be a one cube with many facets, with flying cubes all around. And once again, that Y seam is in here, but you know I had to make it complicated. I couldn't make it easy. I had something called a 9-patch, which means before I put my diamond on, I had to work. So each one of these have 9 pieces of fabric, and then I pray that the thing lies flat. This quilt is machine pieced, applique, and machine quilted. Once again, I did that bias border. If it was a 1/4 inch higher, you would have seen me embroidering on that too, because it's not a sturdy quilt. If you hang it, it would start to sag because it doesn't have stability. Bias quilts sag. Now this one is okay. It's not one of my favorites. I put a whole lot of work in it that you can't see. That's why I guess I have an attitude with it. I put the red around it to give it some interest because the blocks itself are so strong it would be boring. But you see the work in the back. And this embroidery is something called triple embroidered, which means it's sewn 3 times to get. But because it's the white, you can't see how much work I did. So I did waste time and thread, but it's okay. I have nothing but time and opportunity. But this one, I'm still thinking, but this one, she talked to me a lot. She told me, I want to be red. I don't want to be white, I don't want to be black, I want to be red. And I found that the blocks were so hypnotic that I had to put sashing. Sashing is the fabrics you put down the middle. And I was going to use white at one point and red at one point, but it needed something else, so I made a combination. You see, I put red embroidery in the center of the blocks to break up some of that strong black and white, and embroidery in the corners and embroidery in the border. She is machine piece, paper piece, the sashing, paper piece, and embroidery quilted. I like this one a lot. The ones that give me the most work is the one I like the best. Now this one is my favorite. Now I'm looking around. Somebody in here calls me a symmetrical Nazi. I won't say who it is. I like things in order and the colors. And what you see on one side, you see on the other side. I'm looking at you over there. What happened is, even though she's asymmetrical, I do love her a lot. You know, in quilting, we have all different ways to spend money. And there's always another ruler to buy, another technique to learn. This technique had a special ruler, which created this block and this block with 2 pieces of fabric. So I reimagined it, put it in the design, and it needed something, so I put the zigzag sashing in the middle. It's another type of Seminole border, I think. I think it's another. No, it's not. It's just zigzag. It is machine piece, machine piece, paper piece, because I do it the lazy way, and machine quilted with embroidery on the end. When the edge gets too big, you have to embroider it down. That's why I had to embroider that down. You have to. Now, this is a test if you guys are watching. Does this belong in that series? It does not. It is not stripes. It does not belong. I just happen to like it, so I threw it in there. If you notice, it's triangles. This is what paper piecing does. This is why I love paper piecing. It's exact. Those points are awesome. It works perfectly. Now, how I got this quilt done was this center. I made another quilt that did not make this series, which was beautiful. I think you saw a piece of it when I showed them. But anyway, this required very exacting sizes. And I had enough fabric left over, so I made 2. I couldn't let a good block go to waste. So this whole quilt was based upon that center. And I love the way the red just brings it out. And this is why we paper piece, to get that. If you had a poster boy for paper piecing, that's it. And that was the end of my series on stripes. And the last one, guys, well, coming to the end. We're almost 1/3 more to go. I've been going through an epiphany lately. And I don't know where my quilting's going. AAQB has me moving a little bit different, more of those straight lines and traditional blocks. I'm starting to get a little more random. And I find myself making lots of quilts about women. I don't know why, but that's where I was going. And one of the AAQB challenges was to make a quilt based upon the Underground Railroad. So you guys will recognize this. One of the requirements, I'm gonna hang on this for a second. One of the requirements is that you had to put a statement in the quilt. Now there is a controversy that those blocks true? It may not. It may be, it may not. However, there's probably in life there's some truth to something. So I'm sure the slaves did use some of them, somehow. But in my statement to the quilt, I have, this quilt is dedicated to the ladies of the Underground Railroad. Each block is surrounded by African fabric, and the triangles in the border represents life going in every direction. If I was born 88 years earlier, I would have been a slave. They would have been me. I'm in awe of their strength and determination. The ladies of the Underground Railroad. Once again, piece border. These are the triangles I was talking about going in every direction. I embroidered 6 African women in the sashing and 6 words of affirmation. It is machine piece, paper piece, and embroidery quilting. I happen to love this quilt. Egyptians of Cairo. I bought a book called The Egyptian Quilters of Cairo. Egyptian quilters of Cairo are men. They're not women. So this block is applique. It took about a month to do. Very, very labor intensive. And I bought a pattern of African women and children, which you'll see in the corners and in the center. And these blocks, the 2x2s, they're called orange peels. They're also applique. And this quilt is hand quilted. This quilt took about 2.5 months to make. Very labor intensive. And then the beads were supposed to simulate African beads. They're probably not, but that's my story and I'm sticking to it. And I happen to like this quilt too. Would I make it again? It's not worth the time. I probably won't make it again. It was too much time. 2 times too much. Story. My father died in 1988, and my parents went to Italy in the mid-80s, 1980s, and they brought me back 12 handkerchiefs from Italy. And then you guys who know me know I moved from state to state to state. And those 12 handkerchiefs moved with me from state to state to state. But coronavirus once again gave me nothing but time and opportunity to work. So I made this little quilt. This is the second version of that quilt. The first one had 12 ladies, 12 armless ladies, and it didn't look very good. It was very dull, so I had to condense it. Once again, if you want to know why she's armless, because I can't draw. And I could have put any kind of arms in, but it would have looked a little wonky, so I figured just leave it like that. This is a handkerchief my parents gave me. And this was like, I want to know, like a wedding dress. I still have a pin in it. I didn't finish it, I guess. This quilt is machine pieced, machine quilted with a touch of embroidery. Story. Went to Houston Quilt Show about 4 or 5 years ago, and I wanted to support the vendor there, so I bought 2 of her patterns. That's called Quilting Bee. Well, I'm calling it Quilting Bee, because three ladies, quilt sisters like us, sat down and decided to make quilt. This is an applique quilt. This is another Seminole technique. There's lots of them. And so it's machine pieced, applique, and this is embroidered because I wanted the squares perfect. The embroidery machine has beautiful stitches and it's always perfect. You know, the Amish say only God makes quilts perfect. If I did it, it'd be wonky. So I embroider it.
You have a question?
I've got a question real quick. You can't, I hear you keep saying Seminole.
A Seminole technique is a type of border,
Uh-huh.
and there's different types. I showed you one over there, one there, you're gonna see another one here. There's lots of different ones, there's maybe about 15 or 20 of them.
Is it based on Seminole
Because
Indians
I
from
don't-
Florida?
It
That's
might
exactly
be.
what
I
I was
think it
gonna
is.
say.
I think it is.
Because they have
I think it
this,
They did quilting.
their dress has pieced like what you
That's
keep
probably where
showing
it came
us.
from. And if you go online, you'll see how there's a whole lot of designs, there's a whole lot of them.
Mhm.
That's one of them. This is another one, you'll see it. This one is one of them also, a different one. I like it because it's fast and it looks really good.
Mhm.
Once again, I use African fabric for this one. This one's called Show and Tell. She's doing exactly what I'm doing now. She's showing her quilt. She's applique, machine quilted. Story. I went to Williamsburg, I don't want to open it right now. I went to Williamsburg, Virginia for a week's vacation, and I ended up there for a month. Like Gilligan's Island, that 3-hour tour, I had one of those. And it wasn't a really great reason why I was there, it was kind of a sad reason. So, what can I do in a hotel? I didn't have Bernice. Now, Bernice is my soul machine. I didn't have Bernice with me. What can I do? Applique. So all you need is needle, thread, and fabric. So I went to the store for a pattern. Everything was country. I'm not country. So I needed something to smile. Chickens and high heels. She belongs in this group, but she's a lady. She belongs in the group. So when I'll get I'll get to that in a second. I came home and I did the border, and I embroidered the center like chicken wire. And while I was looking for embroidery designs, I found this one, which I have a strange sense of humor. She's a sexy mother club. That's what they embroidered on it. And that one made me smile. I had to smile. Do you want to go over again? Yeah, that one took a month of my life, and
Did you do the drawings? Did you draw the,
no, I bought the pattern.
oh, so you bought the.
And also, I bought the pattern. Yeah, it was a pattern, and I thought it was. I needed something to make me happy.
That'll do it.
Look, I do like that one a lot. Now on YouTube, not YouTube, on Facebook, I belong to a group called Black Girls Quilt. I think that's what it's called, Create. Black Girls Create, and they're all making these African queens, and they all line them like little soldiers. And you know, I like a story. I don't want soldiers, so I did my version because I want to make one too. And there's 20 of these ladies in here. The reason why you can't see them is because I broke a cardinal quilting rule. When you quilt, you're supposed to have light, medium, and dark. I did light, medium, medium, and dark, and the two mediums knocked itself out. So you have a hard time seeing my ladies, right here. They all have different African fabrics. The head, you can see the head, that's the head. I love the secondary design. I love the quilt anyway, even though you can't see my ladies. But I did enjoy making this one. She is machine pieced, paper pieced, and hand quilted. I like that one a lot. Next time I control my colors, it's a little bit better. I need to control my colors. This one I need help with holding before I talk about it. Once again, I'm on the embroidery company looking for designs, and I found high heels. Lovely high heels. High heels I cannot wear. If I wear them, I'll break a hip. But I do love it a lot. I bought 2 patterns. I have about 16 of them. I only use 9. When I put the pattern together, let me hold it this way. It didn't have any interest. So I decided to add the diamonds to give it some more interest. So to make them like little stars. This was a lot of embroidery. Just imagine, each one of these high heels is 35 to 50,000 stitches. Then you have the block in here I embroidered, another 1,500 stitches. Then you have this of between another 1,500 stitches. Multiply that by 9. It's a lot of embroidery. Now Bernice, she worked really hard. I took her to get service. They told me I had 12 million stitches on my sewing machine. Wow. I do like that one a lot. It's one of my favorites. You hear me say I like all my quilts. This quilt is a AAQB collaboration. My quilting sisters. Kim, she's not here because she lives in New York. She gave me 6 of these patterns. I only used 4. And then Glenda gave me the fabric to make the dresses. So this is my Victorian woman quilt, right? Now, this quilt is machine pieced, appliqued, and embroidered, so I could put the crystals in very precise places. Because once again, I'm a symmetrical Nazi.
How do you attach the crystals?
By hand. Each one
They're so,
individually with a knot. Yes, fine.
they're so not.
Yeah, lots of love. Okay. Okay. Flowing. Yeah, dream of a show. This is called flowing. Do you think they're doing that the Beyonce carpet dance? Look at them. I guess I could see them doing the dance. But anyway, it's 7 ladies. They all have jewelry on. I did the embroidery technique on the bottom once again so I can control where I put the beads. Each dress has its own separate color beads. It's machined in a sequence up here. It's machine pieced and appliqued and paper pieced and embroidered. Now what I don't like about this quilt, I hate that border. I dislike that border. I've made it 3 times. I sold it once, that's the original. And this is what I did again.
Yeah, I like that better. It doesn't detract from the ladies.
Right, I just don't like that border. I put less work in it because it's gonna be for sale. The hours I put in the quilts is amazing, as we well know. I want to cut back on a couple hours. I use the same beads for all the dresses, and once again, no jewelry, no sequins. That quilt broke 2 of my needles on the sequins. And what's another Seminole technique, by the way.
So Jackie, your backs are different. Is there a technique that you use to determine the backs? Because the other back for that same one is a different back. So how do you choose the back?
Whatever fabric I have that matches or I want to get rid of. I'm not interested in the back too much because no one really sees it. Now this is the absolute last quilt I made. And I love her a lot. She's called A Rose is a Rose. I'm going to hang on to this one. I love this one a lot. Once again, the piece border. And I did this one I went against Quilters rules. I made the entire quilt. I didn't have rows on top of it. I made my grid, and then I appliqued her on because I didn't want the grid on her dress. At that point, the story in my head for this is she's in Africa, and my Nile is not blue, it's red. Once again, my story, my roots. And I embroidered pots on the bottom, a rose in her hand, she's holding a rose is a rose, and butterflies all around her.
What are the butterflies?
Because I just love the feel of it.
What are the butterflies made of? Is they appliqued?
Embroidered.
They're
Everything's
embroidered.
embroidered.
Oh,
This machine,
that's
this quilt was embroidered. I did a lot of embroidery.
Yeah.
My machine gets lots and lots of work.
How old is Bernice?
Bernice is 3 years old. And when I brought her home, my husband said, we could have bought a car with that money. This is the absolute, now, this I put in this morning. I decided to show you something I'm working on. She's not finished. She's a lady, that's why she's in this group. But she's not finished. And I bought black metallic thread to go around all the feathers. And this is a special technique that when I'm finished, I put it in water. She's gonna puff up. All these components will puff up slightly. So
Why?
it's a special stabilizer.
A stabilizer
It's a special stabilizer that when you wet it, the starch comes out of it
expands.
and expands. It doesn't puff up a lot, just a little. So I wanted to show you a quilt, what a true quilt sandwich looks like, with the batting in the middle and everything. With that is being said, we are at the end. Everybody get a piece of paper for their name? I know some people didn't get. Can you put your name on? You got it? Everybody got it? Who did not get it? Because I'm gonna give away that quilt. While this is being passed around, anybody have any questions?
Yes. What kind of machine is Bernice?
She's a Bernina 770. Yeah, lovely, right? Yeah, she's nice. I was thinking about going to the 790, but my husband would make me move. She's another $6,000.
We'll have to ask her.
Any other questions?
When you paper piece, do you have a thin board? Do you ever just lay the entire thing out?
No, I know, I've broken that quilt down into little pieces, so I know exactly what I want to do. So I will every block cannot be paper piece.
Okay.
You have to find a way to have only one side to be sewn on. You can't have 2 sides.
Okay.
So first you have to determine whether that's paper pieceable. Is that a such word? And then you can design it. Either you buy the pattern, you get it on the computer, or you make it yourself. A lot of times I'll make it myself, as you saw with that one. So with this one, I actually sat down on a light board and made it myself. And it's no fun. It's no better fun. Now sometimes you gotta do, you're a paper piecer, you do it in pieces. but this one's one. But if you wanna make it complex, you do more than one piece together. Any other questions?
Jackie, how long ago did you make these two? We missed,
This one was 2009.
okay.
This is from a book called Bella Bella from Nora McKeon, Italian Mosaic Floors. This one's my own design, 2017. And as I was telling you, a friend of mine got me into designing in 2002. And from then, I designed my own clothes. Now, I'll make a pattern, but I'll juice it up. I'll fix it up and make it my own. Everybody do this? Okay, I need somebody to pick a name.
America's not here.
Don't do it.
Thank goodness. Oh, Lisa Davis. So Lisa now has two of my clothes.
Yes.
Wow.
Here.
I love it. Thank you.
Are the
Can
closet
you
quilts
show-
available for sale?
Okay, let's talk about that. Let's talk about the quilts for sale. Somebody asked you about that Rose is a Rose. And yes, they are for sale. However, she took me 40 hours to make. Now, I get called all the time about, can I buy a quilt? And I go, sure. But they don't want that quilt like the patchwork one that took me 8 hours to make. They want the ones that's 40 and 50 hours to make. And nobody wants to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on this. So even though I give a deal, it's still 40 hours times whatever, plus fabric and batting. It's not attainable, so I don't sell a lot.
Plus your skill and creativity. I mean, you just learned something.
I had to tell somebody the other day, I'm not J.C. Penney, you can't get the things I'm not eating. But the problem is that, yes, they are for sale, but the time, because most of the time you don't want to. So my quilts usually, and a lot of times, I don't want to get rid of them.
Right.
They're my babies.
Exactly.
They're going in the closet. I started giving some away. Some of you guys in here know that. Because I don't want to die and have them in dog beds. Okay, any other questions?
I have a question.
Okay.
When's your book coming out?
I don't have a book. You want to know something?
Please do.
These quilts are not judge worthy, believe it or not.
Really?
They win some. This one I knew was going to win by a judge. It didn't even place. So I'm not judge worthy. So no, I don't have a book coming out.
I think you should.
And you haven't even seen some of my other big ones. This
I
time.
think you should.
I agree.
That is, it would be awesome to have a book that you have done and you talking about different techniques that you have used in your quilts. So it would be really, really
I have to talk to my girlfriend who's self-published. I have a friend who's self-published. I have another friend that's published. I'm looking over at you. Any other questions? Well, that's it for my talk. I want to thank everyone for coming. I know you can be someplace else and you chose to stay with me, and I do thank you. If you know me, and I'm going to say something because some of you guys are late, any of my friends who know me know that in 15 minutes of talking to me, you're going to hear about my quilts. And in a half an hour, you're going to see my quilts. So I've only used to showing my quilts one at a time, driving my friends crazy, on Facebook one at a time. This is the first time I've shown them in a series, and I want to thank Morgan State University for that honor, and the AAQB for me being a member, because they are my quilt sisters. Thank you for coming, and have a great day. Oh, okay. Novella and Dennis, they came from New York. You drove how many hours? 5 hours?
Yeah.
5 hours. My twins, my surrogate grandchildren, I love them. The Green Boys, you know. And Marlo. They drove 2 hours. So thank you very much for coming.
Can you hear me? Hi.
She can see you. She can't hear you.
Hi, Papa. Hi, Papa Simpson. How you doing? That was cute. Oh, she's watching TV. It's cute.
Yeah, I went to everybody. Okay.
Hey, I'll call you back.
I'm glad
That gave a quilt or a quilt.
Okay.